Hi, I'm Adam from Munson PCs, and if you're looking for a new gaming monitor, whether that's for your console or your PC, do stick around, because I'm going to be going through the key features that you need to be keeping an eye out for and how you can choose the right monitor to fit your needs. Buying a new monitor can be a really daunting experience, particularly if you don't know many of the terms and phrases. So first of all, let's break down some of those terms, exactly what they mean, to make things a lot easier for you when you're looking at buying your monitor. First, let's talk about the resolution and the size of the monitor. So the most common resolution for PC gaming is still just 1080p, which is your full HD. You can get lower quality monitors, but when you're gaming, 1080p is absolute minimum. So you've got 2K monitors and you've got 4K monitors as well. Now, 4K monitors are really restricted to either your consoles, so your PS5 and your Xbox Series X, or PCs with the highest level of hardware. Now, the reason for that being is consoles are optimized to work at 4K. All of the games are designed to be able to work at that on the new generation. On PC, you can run lower systems at 4K, but to really get the full experience and be able to turn up the refresh rate, which is something I'll get onto shortly, you need to have that on a slightly lower setting. And this is where 2K comes in. And 2K monitors are slowly becoming the new normal for PC gaming. You can also play your Xbox Series X in 2K. However, if you do plug a PS5 into a 2K monitor, it will just run it at 1080p. Linking with resolution is also the screen size, because if you've got quite a large screen, then having a higher resolution is going to be more noticeable. If you're playing on just a 20-inch display, for example, 1080p is going to be more than enough. You won't really notice the difference between 1080p and 2K. I would probably say the sweet spot is when you get to around about 27 inches.
That's what she said!
If your display is 27 inches or bigger, I would say you're going to need to start looking at a 2K or 4K display. But again, that is all dependent on the hardware that you've got available to you. So next, we're going to start talking about refresh rate. Now, refresh rate is measured in hertz, and essentially it's how many times a second the screen is refreshing the image. So how many times a second is the screen asking to look at a new image? You can go anywhere really from 24 hertz, which is very uncommon. 30 are your cheap monitors, but for gaming, I'd probably say minimum you want is going to be 60 hertz. I've got a 144 hertz monitor, and they do go up to 244, and I believe you can get higher than that, but the human eye generally sees up to about 244 hertz, so there wouldn't be a huge noticeable difference for any more higher than that. So depending on what refresh rate you want to go for and how high a hertz, all depends on the hardware that you've got available to you. I see very little use if you've got hardware that's only going to be running at 60 frames per second, for example, for going to a monitor that's 244 hertz, because you're not going to see the benefit. Having a higher refresh rate isn't necessarily a bad thing if you've got 60 frames per second that you're running on your console or on your PC. Then having that high refresh rate just means that you're going to see the image as soon as it comes available. So next, we're going to go on to response time. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one, and you may see 1 millisecond, you may see 10 milliseconds, you may see 20 milliseconds. Now, essentially this means how quick the pixels, the individual pixels you've got there, can go from black to white to black. So this will be how quick the image can change on the screen. Obviously, refresh rate is how many times the images are coming in, but this is how quick the image can actually change and how good it will look. And a big noticeable thing, if you've got a slower response time, you will see ghosting, because the image just can't change quick enough to keep up with everything else. So with this, the lower response time, the better the image will look, because it's changing much quicker. Now, response rate timings will help a little bit when it comes to playing with consoles. Having lower is always going to be a little bit better, but you will find, because you are a little bit limited with the hardware on consoles, and it's not going to be trying to change images quite as fast as some of your PC hardware, I wouldn't necessarily say you're going to need as low as a 1 millisecond. I would say anything under 5 would be pretty good, but again, the lower is better with milliseconds. So a couple of other things that you're going to see, NVIDIA's G-Sync and AMD's FreeSync. And this is a variable refresh rate. And essentially what that means is it matches up the refresh rate of the monitor with the game that you're playing on your PC. Now, I don't believe this works very well with consoles. It's not something that I've really played about with. If you do know, let me know down in the comments below. But on PC, it will match it up. It essentially stops the juddering of the screen. It does smooth everything out, and it makes the whole thing look a whole lot nicer, and it's a much smoother experience. So now you've got an understanding of the things that you're looking for. How do you know which monitor is going to be right for you? As I said before, you've got to take this on a case-by-case scenario. You can quite easily spend £400 or £500 on a monitor and it will be a fantastic monitor that will work all round. But are you wasting your money with the hardware that you've got? Potentially. I'm not one of these people who will say just get the highest rated thing possible. If your hardware isn't going to match it, it feels like it would be a waste of money. And I'm not going to sit here and just say go out and spend all of that. Firstly, what are you going to be using for? If you're going to be using it for console gaming and it's not the newest generation, 1080p monitors are going to be absolutely fantastic, and you're not going to need much more than 60 Hz on the refresh rate, just because that's what it's locked to. Obviously, if you're going to be looking at then upgrading to the latest consoles, you can still run it at 1080p, but you may find that you want to get a higher grade monitor ready for the new consoles. When it comes to matching a monitor with your PC, however, this becomes a little bit trickier, particularly as there are so many different types of PCs that can be built with all the different graphics cards, your different CPUs, and all of these things will make a slight difference in the way it's going to be used. A general rule of hand will be you want to be looking to play your games at the highest frames per second. Now, for first-person shooters, you tend to find that a higher refresh rate and a higher frames per second is crucial, and this will give you the gaming edge. When it comes to your strategy top-down games, it's not going to make a huge difference having that higher response rate. Obviously, it's going to look nicer to you, but it doesn't give you that competitive edge in gaming. I find that quite a nice middle ground for refresh rate is about 144 Hz. 120 to 144 is quite a nice middle ground. In order of importance, I would be looking at the size of the monitor that you're going to be going for. I'd then be looking at the quality. So is that going to be 1080p? Is it going to be 2K? Is it going to be 4K? You're then going to be looking at the refresh rate. How many frames per second are you going to be playing at? Now, if you're unsure of what your games are going to be playing at 1080p, 2K or 4K, you can go onto YouTube, type in the game that you play, and you will find that there is a lot of people who do videos that will break down it playing at 1080p settings, 2K settings and 4K settings, so that you'll know when you've got your monitor set up roughly how well your games are going to be playing with your hardware. So you then want to be getting the lowest response rate that you can get within your budget. I wouldn't say go and spend another £100 on a monitor just because it goes from 3 seconds down to 1 second millisecond. You're not going to notice the difference quite as much. However, do try and get it as low as you can, again, as I said, within your budget. So hopefully you found this useful. It'd be fantastic if you could give the video a like if you've enjoyed it, if you've taken something away from this. If you are going to be getting a new monitor, do put it in the comments below. It'd be great to see what you've taken from this and what monitor you're now going to be buying. Thanks for watching, and as always, we will see you in the next one.